Next, I would like to welcome to the stage 4 social impact leaders. The first is Chang, President and Chief Executive Officer of Canada Helps, Dr. Lorna Reid, Managing Director of Leach Centre for Social Impact, Mike Prosserman, EPIC Leadership Board Chair, and Jennifer Leach, VP Operations and Engagement, Sustainability and Impact from RBC.
Picking up the pieces of my life without you on my mind. I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once I never could have hoped to win.
I'm going to start up here because I have some notes, so you don't need to see my papers flying around. And is anyone else surprised that we made it to 11:30 without the first mention of AI? I don't know, that to me seems like a real record based on the conversations I'm having. Hello everyone, my name is Jen. I have the privilege of being the Vice President of Operations Engagement for RBC's Sustainability and Impact team. And I'm so thrilled to be here and to welcome you all to this important conversation. As many of you in the room know, the not-for-profit sector is currently facing pressures and challenges on an unprecedented scale. The Carleton University Charity Insights Canada project aptly describes these challenges as a trilemma, and they categorize it in 3 ways: the rising demand for services, declining financial resources, and workforce challenges. And although these have been challenges for the sector for a very long time, the pandemic and the affordability crisis have made them worse, and they are only further getting compounded by current geopolitical and economic shifts. And as this group knows, the not-for-profit sector is the heart of economic and community transformation in Canada. And as we'll discuss today, not-for-profit organizations and leaders need swift action with support and resources to thrive and continue to make meaningful impact in our communities. At RBC, we've been listening to our community investment partners to better understand these challenges and to learn how we can better support them to achieve their missions. And I know there are many corporate funders in the audience today, and we're all focused on our priorities, and we're all focused on funding programs, but we can't reach those objectives, and we can't have the collective impact unless the sector is positioned for success. And that's why at RBC, as one of the largest corporate funders in Canada, we see it as part of our responsibility to invest in the overall health, longevity, and sustainability of our community investment partners and the not-for-profit sector as a whole. And so to address these challenges, RBC is launching a multifaceted approach that aims to strengthen the capacity of the not-for-profit sector in 2 ways. The first is around leadership and talent resilience. We know that not-for-profit leaders are the heart of the sector's success, and so we're focused on helping leaders develop essential skills, strengthen their own team's well-being and resilience, and access the resources and tools they need to thrive and lead. We're also investing in digital skills development, and by supporting access to digital tools, training, systems in areas such as AI adoption, data management, cybersecurity, we hope that we can help not-for-profits bridge that digital skills gap, improve operational efficiencies, and help increase the capacity of the sector and make sure that the sector does not get left behind. Now, RBC is not known for being the most humble of organizations, but what we do know is that we are not the experts in this space, and that not-for-profit organizations have the ideas to lead and change in these areas. So to start, RBC has committed over $7 million in funding 22 not-for-profit organizations across Canada to support leadership, talent resilience, and digital skills development for other nonprofits. Yeah, thanks. We're also going to lean in with more than our money. We have 100,000 employees globally, 1,000 employees strong, and we want to mobilize that employee base through skills-based volunteering opportunities to help bring knowledge, skills, insights, and resources where they can be most helpful. We also want to use our convening power to bring together not-for-profit community leaders, and other stakeholders to leverage our collective expertise, resources, and networks, and to learn from each other. And as I said, this is just the start for us, and we'll continue to learn and adapt and refine in the months ahead. But today's panel is going to help inform our approach, as will the conversations that we have during this incredible event. So I'm delighted to be joined on stage by three inspiring not-for-profit leaders, Duke, Lorna, and Mike, to get started on this great conversation. And now I'm just going to mosey on over. Woo. Okay, so opening question for everybody. What do you think is the one biggest challenge or capacity gap that is facing the charitable sector? And you're next to me, Duke, so you get to go first.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you all again. I think for me, it's very clear, and it was in your opening, it's resources. This trilemma is a shortage of resources for the sector. We are short on funds, we are short on employees, as we've had a massive transition wave hit the sector of people leaving the sector, and we're short on volunteers too. So some of our data that you might be tracking, 57% of charities have reported that their demand for services outstrips their ability to supply it, right? And this is only getting worse as the economy continues to weaken and more people turn to charities for help. So resources are really key for us right now in bringing back people to work in the sector, bringing back the funds that we need to build capacity, which is so courageous of RBC to start funding capacity, and bringing back volunteers. I saw my friends from Volunteer Canada in the room too, and they're working on a national volunteer strategy. All critical components to help us in this recovery.
Well said. Lorna.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to take a slightly different approach and say that the biggest challenge facing the charitable sector, and something that Jen did mention, is that we're all lost in our own definitions and agendas, and that we do not actually have a collective common view of what impact means, what social impact means. And so we're all focused on our own reporting requirements, our targets, our bottom lines, and they are not shared. And that has an outsized, very negative, I would say, impact on our charitable sector and the leaders who, in essence, need to be the translators of all of those collective and different agendas and definitions. And what do I mean by translators? Means that they and the leaders do need to do what is necessary to ensure the resources so that their services and programs can be provided, but at the same time, they are working in very complex community situations with communities and Canadians who do not understand those targets and those agendas. And this is really holding back a collective view of impact that could elevate all of us to see something far more monumental in Canada, and move away from another trend, which is the debilitating focus on all of us attributing results and impact to our own work in a singular fashion. So again, I would say that collective energy and understanding is really our biggest challenge, and it's playing out in how resources are being deployed, how resources are not being deployed, and how organizations actually are able to invest in their own capacity at the front line to, frankly, absorb more resource. So that's what I'd contribute.
Mike.
I'm usually a pretty positive person, but you've put me in a position to talk about this, which is, I believe, a recipe for disaster. I work with about 80 EDs of small to medium-sized charities, and we need effective supports for nonprofit leaders. Effective, I'll highlight that word, ASAP. Whenever you're hearing from these reports, a lot of people wrote reports on how burnt out people are. It's way worse than that, actually, because there's repercussions for people talking about how bad it truly is, how close they are to running out of money, how dysfunctional their boards are, and how little they're sleeping. I just want to say the large majority of charities in Canada, many more than you may think, are actually very, very small. 87% of charities are under $1.5 million. 74% of charities are under $500,000 annual budgets. So imagine that. And leadership is lonely. This is the loneliest job. I say being an executive director is an impossible job. I see some executive directors who I know nodding their heads. Once I was in a room of funders and I said, what keeps you up at night? And they said, nothing keeps me up at night. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not talking to executive directors. Leaders honestly just have no one they can work through their biggest challenges, so they're doing it alone. And as the demand goes up and more burnout happens, we're losing leaders and they're not coming back. So I think it's a really serious cocktail for a crisis. And if you've probably known, I'm sure everyone in this room knows organizations, like long-standing organizations that have closed down, that should not have probably closed down. Maybe the demand for those services has not gone away, but the organization just couldn't make it for many different reasons that compounded on each other. And all it takes, I'll just say, is one slip, because the runway of cash is like this. So you get one bad bully board member, you get one funder who pulls out without telling, the organization, or just literally you spend down your reserve because of a pandemic or a political, situation, and then all of a sudden, that 20-year organization that is still needed in community is gone. So, sorry, depressing. I swear I'm a nice guy, but.
Well, the good news is we're going to talk about solutions, not just the problem. So. Duke, you talked about resources. I really want to pull on that thread. What role can funders play to support digital skills for nonprofits and resources? And what are the biggest opportunities you see to make sure that this work is a truly collaborative effort?
Yeah, so I think my fellow panelists have already alluded to the fact that the charitable sector has a certain shape to it, right? It's 85,000 organizations. It really is a constellation of small businesses when you really come down to it, right? And so when we think about digital, most of these organizations are small and resource strapped, but they're also digitally behind. They're digitally behind when it comes to their adoption and use of technology, when it comes to cybersecurity, and that makes them inefficient and vulnerable. So what are our choices? We could either choose to go organization by organization and hope they somehow modernize themselves 85,000 different times, or our approach at Canada Helps has been, well, let's take our model as a shared service and shared infrastructure and help them digitally modernize all at once, right? And so that's our role in this. I think there's also roles in upgrading people's skills and teaching them how to use these tools and modern ways of working. And so that all comes together nicely if we can deploy it out in the field. And I'm so grateful for RBC support in this and others who understand that capacity building is really important. And it's not the sexy thing that you get to put on your brochure with a picture of a kitten, but it's still foundational to the thriving of the sector. And so when I think about corporate and your role in this, it's really helping us provide the skills and knowledge transfer and the resources to go digitally enable this really important part of our country and our culture and our economy.
That's great. And actually, in our pre-call, Duke, you talked a lot around sharing resources, not just digital, but actually opportunities to share physical resources.
Yeah, again, it's an inefficient system when we have 85,000 organizations out in Canada, rightfully so in these small communities where no one else will want to be, but that means that a lot of things get done inefficiently. So aside from the digital capabilities, do we really need to, for example, write 85,000 different maternity leave policies? Do we need to have 85,000 different ways of doing other HR things? Do we really need to have every organization out there need to go fundraise for a truck? So many charities have trucks and they use them one day a week, right? So there's this inefficient use of resources in the system that could be optimized if, like with impact reporting, we could figure out how to work better together as a unit, as a sector.
Yeah, that collective is so important. Lorna, your work at Leap focuses on supporting and scaling impact initiatives. What do you see as successful team and talent structures in organizations that scale? And what do we need to do to ensure the sector continues attracting and retaining that talent?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you. Yes, so we do work with organizations in the charitable and nonprofit sector to scale, and thank you, Jen. And I just want to emphasize that we have a very interesting and unique vantage point, because when we talk about scale, this is not incremental growth. This is actually exponential scale, which is fairly unusual in the charitable sector in Canada. We have a lot more organizations that could really benefit from this kind of support. So at the heart of it is the leader and the leadership team, as we can all appreciate. And they, in essence, are holding multiple truths. And I'd say those multiple truths are both in terms of a lot of the pressure that they face, but also when done through a lens of change management and transformation, can be very empowering for their teams and really motivating, actually, for their teams. And so when we think about the change management, it's about that balance between working with teams in the short-term perspective on the services that they're delivering, their deliverables they're responsible for, and how to maintain your team and keep them motivated to do that work. And my colleagues have spoken to that. That can be very challenging, but we also know that practically 100% of individuals in charitable organizations are there for mission. And so that mission and that work is important, and the deliverables will motivate. However, that won't necessarily look the same when you now have a leader and a leadership team that really want to grow their organization and think about scale. So their team, in essence, has to hold that real truth of the day-to-day operation, and then in essence you're almost creating a whole other organization that is now focused on what's not the day-to-day, but how are we going to design for the future and design for scale. So that can be, as we can appreciate, requires a lot of capacity. This is something I'd say that aligns with the conversation here around thinking about the infrastructure in the social sector. And how capacity can be shared, how capacity can come through other partnerships, through expertise, through the leverage that we can bring to that table and to support those organizations, so that that balance isn't as much of a balance, but they actually have the support, almost two teams of support. And so I'd say that also when we think about the motivation and attracting and retaining talent, I'm a believer that, I've been in this sector my entire life and I understand mission, but I also believe that it's not okay for leaders and for people who want to support this organization to just assume everybody's okay because they're there for that mission. In essence, what we're also hearing now is that where we are in Canada right now, we all have to step up. We're in a bad situation that at a community level is not unlike what some of us who will have worked internationally will have seen in much more complex, difficult countries. So we have a lot of work to do. So mission is not enough. So if there are resources to rally and to support people, we have to recognize their efforts. And that can happen, again, through design and thinking about capacity. Something Duke said, everybody wants to learn to be more digitally savvy. Everybody, would really appreciate those opportunities. So we have to think about how professional development and growth and expansion of an organization can be additional motivation for those that are working in this sector. So we see those areas, I'd say, in organizations at scale, and leaders and their teams are in that space and doing some really innovative work. And then lastly, I'll just make my last plug for that impact measurement is so fundamentally critical. And that is not just why we measure impact and we do it to report, or because even as an organization we set targets. But the more we can invest there, and we can do that as a collective, it helps people understand and honor the work they're doing in the communities that is really impactful. And so if we're not setting them up to understand that change and to understand the impact that they're having, then we're not doing a service to that. So all of those areas, I'd say, really help organizations and teams to see in that bigger picture.
Yeah, and change management, that's something in large organizations that we focus on all the time, but in smaller organizations that takes resourcing, it takes dedication, and that just falls off the priority list when you have day-to-day pressures of serving your communities. Mike, you've spoken to the very bleak reality that we're facing in the not-for-profit sector, particularly smaller organizations, and how leaders are struggling to navigate these challenges. What strategies and investments are most critical right now to build leadership resilience and prevent that burnout that you talked about?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to the fellow panelists. Lots of fantastic ideas here. I was an ED for 15 years of a charity that I founded. And like I said, it's an impossible job. And people throw around the term capacity building a lot in their granting proposals. And they're like, we support capacity. And RBC has done an amazing job with this new initiative.
I'm not paying them to say this, just.
I'm saying it because I remember seeing it on other applications where it'd be like, oh, we support capacity. What does that mean? Oh, we're giving you $500 to spend it on whatever you want. So then I start looking around for things and I'm like, what can I spend that $500 on? Exactly. So this was an issue for me as an ED. I loved going to Banff. It was great. I took every opportunity that I could apply to get away for a week on anyone's dime to do that. It was fantastic, but it didn't solve my problems. We need peer support of people who are running these charities, these small charities, so they can work with each other to solve their very complex challenges. Because no offense to consultants, some of my best friends are consultants, but you don't know this until you feel it on a day-to-day basis, on a year-to-year basis, on a decade-to-decade basis, if you make it that long. So I think peer support, from what I've seen, I taught a fantastic course at U of T, which I love, but I stopped because I really felt that this is not how we learn in this field in a way that is accountable. There's no accountability, and I really wanted to create that accountability. So I created the peer support program that I wish I had as an ED, and now we have about 80 members across the city, and it works. You gotta really trust, and I think trust is something that we don't throw around enough to people who run these organizations. And unfortunately, a lot of these organizations are hierarchical in that way. So one person has the ability to make or break an organization. And let's say some are making them and some are breaking them, and I don't blame them because this is an impossible job, and why would you do that to yourself? So I'll just say there are very few, if not none, in terms of ongoing, high-quality, accessible leadership development opportunities, and we want to see more of that. So let's, find more of those opportunities so that we can provide them to leaders, not just give them $500 on an application. And I'll just say this: strong leaders build strong organizations and build strong communities, period. It's as simple as that. And people who are burnt out, and there's a lot of EDs in this room, and some of them are smiling, but like crying on the inside. And I know what that feels like. I personally burnt out and developed anxiety as a result of my job, and I live with it every day, and it's I know people are struggling out there, but they're here because they care about their community. So we have to support those leaders so that we can have a sector, or we can have people to run those projects that are being funded. So anyways, I apologize for being so grim, but I really do believe that the people running these organizations are some of the most resilient and smart people in the entire world, and we need to really support them so we don't lose them.
Yeah, so that's a strong call to action to support those leaders. With our time left, speaking of actions, more actions, not about the actions that you're taking, but the people in this room right here. So in this room, we've got representatives from not-for-profits, we've got leaders, we've got government, we've got funders. If you could ask individuals in the room to commit to one action that would strengthen the resilience and capacity of the sector, what would it be? Duke, back to you.
Ooh, okay. Normally I would close these sessions with like a values-based argument or an ethics-based argument or a justice-based argument. I'm just going to make a straightforward economics-based argument to you all around why it's important to support the capacity of the nonprofit sector. And here's the economics of it. We are 8.3% of GDP. We're the largest portion and contributor to GDP. We're the largest employer in Canada at 2.5 million workers in the nonprofit sector. Disproportionately women, disproportionately newcomers, disproportionately minorities. And we do the hard jobs. If that, you take that 8.3% and combine with some of the other GDP contributions in the care economy from the for-profit sector, the care economy itself is 13% of GDP. Yet none of us are talking about it, right? And here's my thing, you'll miss us when we're gone. If this thing collapses in this economic downturn, you'll miss us when we're gone, because we are the social safety net. And so to build the capacity and to fund the infrastructure to make sure this important support for the whole Canadian economy is super critical, because it's charities that are watching kids so your workers can stay at work a full day. It's charities that are providing mental health care. It's charities that are feeding people and supplementing their food budgets because your companies can't afford to pay them enough right now. That's all the work of charities, and you'll miss us when we're gone.
I don't know, Duke. I think that was more powerful than a values comment at the end. Lorna.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I can follow that, Duke. Yeah, that was good. Thank you so much. You know, I think I'll make maybe a fairly simple statement then, relative, because again, that was pretty wonderful there, what Duke said. I'm going to pick up on Jen's opening comments and just emphasize that RBC listened and came forward to have conversations and ask questions and listened. And in that space and in that way, landed on this concept of capacity in the social sector as something pretty integral to the success of their agenda, alongside what was going to be the success of the agenda of organizations in the charitable sector. So I think I'll go back to where I started and what I truly believe on all of our definitions and agendas. And I would say as a call to action is, please strike up some conversations and listen. And ask questions and listen again. And don't necessarily ask questions about your own agenda or your own priorities. Just really listen to the person you're talking to. Because I do believe we all have very strong shared intentions and really value the diversity of this country and the inclusive economy that we all want to build, and we can get there. So I would just suggest go find somebody you don't know that works in a different sector and have a conversation, and please listen to each other.
Yeah, listening, very simple, very impactful, something not all of us do very well. Very good point. Mike?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think a lot has been said already, so I won't continue on it, but I really believe we need to fund leadership like it matters, because it does, and we're losing so many of our best people. And I just really want to see this sector grow and thrive, not survive, or in the worst case, not survive. So I really think we need to invest in that leadership and the people doing the work, because if you're funding a project, there's going to be no one left to do that project. And when I'll just say it again, when leaders thrive, teams thrive. When teams thrive, communities thrive. And we also just need to find those, find, grow, and scale leadership development that works. Because maybe there's something in Australia or somewhere else we can find. Let's find good ideas out there and fund organizations unrestricted, multi-year, and trust in the organizations that you trust in. Trust them. Don't ask them to submit 100-page reports. I was talking to an unnamed person here earlier that was just just trust me. We know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. So just let's have a phone call and you take the notes from that so that we can use that as a report, so I can focus on doing the work that I'm already burnt out doing. So that was 3 things. I'm sorry.
Amazing. Can I get a big hand for this incredible panel? Thank you. And I see Brad is here.
Thank you, Jen and Duke and Lorna and Mike. Sector capacity building is such a foundational issue. If we don't have sector capacity building, we don't have greater purpose. We don't have this event, and it's always been a topic near and dear to my heart, so thank you so much for bringing it to our stage. We are going to head into lunch, which is sponsored by our great friends at Your Cause from Blackbaud, who have been a conference sponsor since the inception of this event, and they're really appropriate because they're champions in both the corporate sector, Blackbaud, and the charitable sector. We also invite you to build a kit with our friends from Kits for a Cause. For those of you who have been to this event, you know that building kits for the community is something that is near and dear to the heart of this conference. So please, we invite you to visit their table. We are back here at 1:15 sharp, so you have a little bit more than an hour to break, convene, some great food coming your way, and we will see you back here in just over an hour.